Welcome everyone to the October board meeting of Ignite CDA, Coeur d'Alene's Urban Renewal Agency. If you'll stand and help me with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you all. We'll take public comment now, if we have any public comment. Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from our September board meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 18th board meeting and the October 9th special call meeting minutes.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion, corrections, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, that motion carries. Next, Hillary will do a presentation on Envision CDA with Nicole. Welcome.
Good afternoon. Thanks for having me here. And I will be co-presenting with Sean Holm from the City of Coeur d'Alene and Nicole Kaler from CDA 2030. So the project we're going to be talking to you about is the Envision Coeur d'Alene project. And what is it? So it really is, it's a partnership between the City of Coeur d'Alene and CDA 2030, the community's nonprofit visioning organization, to update the city's comprehensive plan and to update CDA 2030's vision and implementation plan. And so you can kind of see on this slide, as we'll kind of show you some of the historical things that have happened throughout the city, kind of first when our zoning ordinance came into place initially, our first comprehensive plans. So we've been doing this since the 50s. Really, this is an important thing to look at. How do we grow our community and what are those important land use regulations? And so we started doing a lot of the planning before it was even a state mandate. So as you can see here on the screen, state's Local Land Use Planning Act is where we were first mandated to start doing land use with the comprehensive plan and the zoning as well. So kind of some additional comprehensive plan updates along the way. We are asked to look at those every 7 to 10 years and evaluate, are the plans up to date or do they need to be refreshed? And at this point, we're really going to be doing a big update in partnership with CDA 2030 and a consultant team as well, just to make sure that we really are meeting the needs of the community and looking at it comprehensively. And there are also 17 items that are required by the state that we look at. So there's a few we need to add. And we're also going to be doing a big analysis of land use to figure out how should we grow. You know, there's different ways we can grow as a community, and so that's one of the things we're looking at. We're going to be focusing more on economic development and also just making it more of an interactive document. And then for CDA 2030 is really to gauge the community to find out, has the vision changed? And of the 180 action items, what items have been completed, which ones need to be revised, what new ones should be added, and then who are the lead partners in our community that can take those forward. And so as you can kind of see here on the far right, this really is kind of a culmination and a collaboration between the organizations, and it really is cost savings. It helps by sharing staff and resources and going out to the community only the one time instead of having two different entities asking a lot of the same questions. And the documents that we have both really need to be in alignment. So I'm going to introduce the project managers so that you can kind of see who's leading this effort. So of course, Planning Department is very involved, as is CDA 2030. We have Sean Holm, Senior Planner with the city, is the project manager on the city side. And then Nicole Kaler, Executive Director of CDA 2030, is managing from CDA 2030's side. And then we have the project team. So we have hired MIG consultants to really help us with this. So while the city and CDA 2030 staff and volunteers are doing a lot of the legwork and will continue to do that, MIG is really helping kind of steer the process and doing a lot of helping us figure out what's the best community engagement, what are the tools, doing the land use modeling, looking at transportation impacts and coming up with some mitigation strategies and looking at the economic development. And so it's a great partnership. And they have brought in Kittleson to do the traffic analysis and then Bridge Economics for the economic side. So with that, I will turn it over to Nicole Kaler to talk more about kind of the visioning aspect of this project.
Thanks, Hillary. Hi, Nicole.
Good afternoon.
So how do we plan for change? Change is inevitable. As trends change and technology changes and our community continues to grow, we change. Our community can address these changes and plan for future success. So what is our plan? It's really to gather community input. We have a public engagement plan throughout this process, and the intention is really to build relationships and create opportunities for participation. On September 26th, we launched at the Innovation Den the kickoff event for Envision Coeur d'Alene and had great participation. Throughout this whole 15-month process, we'll have workshops that are held geographically around the community, pop-up events, interactive website opportunities, as well as engaging people on social media and through traditional media outlets. Our two deliverables are really to come out with a shared vision in the visioning realm. So where does our community want to be in the year 2040 for this purpose? And an actionable plan. So how do we get there? What are the directions to get to that location? What we're asking our community is, where will you be in 2040? And this is really what we're taking into consideration. How would we grow and should we grow? What should change? What should we preserve and remain the same? And then what are our priority actions to get to that location? And so really there's these common themes throughout this 15-month process, and they'll really be wrapped into this collaborative project that will create a plan that is both going to be utilized as the city's comprehensive plan and the update to the 2030 implementation plan. One more. And with this, we'll have Sean come up. He's going to talk a little bit about our launch event. Transitions.
Thank you, Nicole. So I'm Sean Holm. I'm the project manager from the city side. Nicole alluded to a moment ago is we had the public kickoff on September 26th, and it was a great event. It was the beginning of that visioning. And so I don't know how many of you were there. I think Dan was for sure, as well as the mayor. And we set it up so that we had numerous ways that the public could interact with the consultants as well as us. And it started off with a sign-in sheet, and then right by the door there was the thought bubbles of what you see Coeur d'Alene being in 2040, and we got some great feedback there. Those are all being gathered together right now to be placed on the website, so that should be updated shortly. There was also some dot exercises as seen here in the corner. They were asking about what the community sees for important, from least important to most important across the whole issue, a bunch of different issues such as public transportation and building on hillsides, property rights, etc. And you can see those in this as well. From there, we had Hillary and Nicole introduced the mayor. The mayor talked for a moment about the future of Coeur d'Alene and turned it over to MIG, who did a PowerPoint presentation. After that, we had some more thought exercises on sticky notes, similar to what Nicole was just talking about, is what do you see Coeur d'Alene being in 2040? What could get in the way of that? What are our strengths and weaknesses? We followed that up with a game that was specifically produced for the city of Coeur d'Alene as a map of Coeur d'Alene as well as the ACI. And that is available, by the way, if somebody would like to check those out, and I would be willing to facilitate for larger groups. So that is available. It's a wonderful game, and we hope a lot of people do take us up on that offer and check it out. It really takes a look at growth and starts the conversation for people to start thinking about how planning is done in the city. It's also great to have good snacks and a kids' table too. You can see the kids were very busy building their future Coeur d'Alene, which was great. So, as part of the CAC, and the CAC stands for the Community Advisory Committee, those are the group of individuals that will help influence the plan and also watch over what the focus groups are doing, the 6 focus groups. And it is made up of 23 total individuals. Here is a list of those. We had recently picked these individuals. We tried to spread them out based on location of where they are in the city, what their jobs are, and who they represent. We have a pretty great mix, we feel, across the community. That is chaired by Tom Messina, who's also the Planning Commission Chair, and then there's also 6 other planning commissioners, and each one of those has been tied to one of those 6 focus groups. We felt like that was a good strategy to go with. So I'll take a moment right now and talk about the project timeline and where we're at. So phase 1 was that public kickoff. Phase 2 is analysis and preferences, and these overlap a little bit. So we will continue to engage the public and gather that public input while our consultants take the information that I am helping to gather and get to them to take a look at the current situation in Coeur d'Alene, how traffic is operating, what our land use is at, what the values are in relationship to the value of the land is to what improvements have been made to that to help identify which properties may be ripe for reinvestment. And while that's going on, mapping and refinement will start to take place, and that will kind of take it to the next level where we can receive some feedback from the public in what we are doing to make sure that we are headed in the right direction. After that, we will develop the comprehensive plan. That'll be that first draft that will be disseminated to council, Ignite, Planning Commission, the public, to get that first kind of feedback as to, are we in the right place? What needs to be changed? Did we do it correctly? Following that, in winter of 2020, our goal is to have adoption of the plan. And so with that wraps up our presentation today. So, well, actually not, there's a couple more slides here. So so what's next? What's on the front burner right now? So we are setting up some pop-up game nights. We want to go out to the community in at least 3 locations and play the games some more with people that maybe weren't able to attend on the 26th. We're forming the focus groups, those 6 groups right now. We're on the verge of doing that. Online surveys have been placed on the website. They are available right now. The public can take those. We encourage them to go to the website, which is envision.org. Please go there and take those surveys, as well as a SWOT analysis, which actually was just delivered by MIG today. So we haven't even had a chance to open it up and look at it, but the idea behind that was to identify what the strengths and weaknesses were for our current plans, as well as the implementation plan, and then what our opportunities and threats are going forward with the update. And so with that, I'll open it up to any questions.
Question for Sean?
Let's see, you might have said, but what's the target date for that draft, kind of the second to the last step?
Second to the last, I would probably say right around the middle of the 3rd quarter of 2020, so that we give enough time to make those changes and get that feedback before the final draft comes forward.
So about a year from now?
Yes, about a year.
Okay.
Thank you.
What's your funding sources?
Our funding sources, the city of Coeur d'Alene has graciously paid for a large part of that. The total overall cost is about $216,000. Coeur d'Alene 2030 has also helped in some regards with paying for, we had Jake Geringer on staff for a little while. They paid for him. They are also helping pay, or we're helping pay for some of the graphic design for the website. So that's where the funding sources are.
Any other questions or comments? Sean, thanks a million.
Thank you.
Next is the committee reports. Finance Committee, Commissioner Arman.
Finance Committee reports. So starting out with the balance sheet for the Lake District. The Lake District experienced $450,082 decrease in cash assets from August month end. The fixed assets, the CIP Park Drive, decrease of $24,822 into the fiscal year adjustment. Buildings and sites, decrease of $195,159 into fiscal year adjustment. And then the land had a decrease of $422,200 into fiscal year adjustment. Other assets, the Lake District 2016 Series Note Reserve Account, increase of $102 for the month into September. On the liabilities and fund balance, no change on the bonds, and all other liability parameters either unchanged or normal for the month, including the 2% credit to the due to the arts line item due to the county increment check received in September. The Lake District P&L, the Lake District received $17,680 in tax increment revenue from the county in September. Agency-funded initiatives, Atlas Waterfront Project, Welshcomber Team, $110,420. And miscellaneous Project 1, $1,666 for Coeur d'Alene TV capital improvements. Professional fees, payments to HDR master planning effort, all other P&L expenditure line items are in line or normal for the operating month. The River District balance sheet assets, the River District experienced $235,280 decrease in cash assets from the August month end. And Atlas deposit receivable, $200 for the opening of the Atlas checking account. The liabilities and fund balance, all liability parameters were either unchanged or normal for the month, including 2% credit to the due to ours line item due to the September county increment check. The River District P&L, the River District received a $17,051 in tax increment revenue from the county in September. Agency-funded initiatives, the Saltese Roadway, $209,785 was the final payment for the project. And the Stimson Mill Site Atlas Phase 1, Project Phase 1 was $4,025 Welshcomber Team. All other P&L expenditure line items are in line with the normal operating month. For the first time, we're going to have the Atlas District on here. The Atlas District balance sheet, the assets, the Atlas District received a $200 increase in cash assets due to the loan from the River District to open the Atlas checking account. Their liabilities and fund balance due to the River District was $200 for the loan, and the Atlas District does not have a P&L at this point in time. So that is the first reading for the Atlas District. There'll be many, many going forward. So that is the financial report for the 3 districts.
Thank you, sir.
Moving on down to payables. It's not a big month for payables either. First of all, Elam and Burke, $580. This was for the Health Corridor Initiative. Holly Troxel, total payment of $6,358. That was broken out. The legal counsel, general legal counsel was $1,116. The URD for the potential health corridor and Midtown project for the Lake District URD, was $4,364. And in the River District, the Atlas Initiative was $878, once again for a total of $6,358. There was a final payment to the HDR Engineering, final invoice for $19,866.10. The Redevelopment Association of Idaho, we have our membership dues, fiscal year 20 membership dues of $850, plus the fiscal year 20 legislative contribution of $2,600, for a total of $3,450, and that is all the payables for the month of September. So the total amount for the month total is $30,254.10. That is the payables for the month.
Thanks, Mick. I'll entertain a motion to approve the financials and payables.
A motion to approve the Lake, River, and Atlas District financial statements for September 2019 and the payables for September and October 2019.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thanks, that motion carries. Parking Commission, Mr. Jordan's gone, so
There
no
was no quorum last week, so the no parking data.
parking update. Moving right into the Executive Director's report. Tony?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. First on the item is Northwest Boulevard ITD Traffic Signal Coordination Initiative and funding request. Our infamous Mr. Troy Tymason will address the board on this issue.
Good afternoon. Thanks for all that you do for our community. Last evening, our council was in this very same space doing work so that we could bring this agreement forward to you and share with you what we believe will be a solution to this situation along Northwest Boulevard. Couple PowerPoint slides. You realize that the Idaho Transportation Department controls the signals along Northwest Boulevard at Ramsey, from Lakewood Drive all the way to Golf Course Road because of their proximity to the freeway. The work that we are bringing forward to you today and seeking a funding partnership has over 3.5 years invested into it to make sure that ITD is comfortable with it, the city of Coeur d'Alene is comfortable with it, and it ties into that traffic study that was done, another partnership with the city and Ignite. So from my desk, this is very exciting, and our engineer and their team need to get all the credit for it. However, this has not been a limited situation. This is what we don't really want to see out there on that boulevard. You have heard about it, our council members have heard about it, and the administration at the city has heard about it. Our analysis indicates that many of the detection devices in the boulevard going up over Ramsey Road are not functioning correctly. That makes any software that sits in the traffic boxes not perform at their ultimate. So we know that, we've been working on that, and ITD has not been spending a lot of effort to resurrect that situation. With this proposal, we are looking to take over all of those signalized intersections. The good news is that ITD has committed, and we are entering into the agreement, that they would spend $175,000 to put the equipment in that we need to fix the 4 that they have. We also get to control the 2 on the outer edges of this. The good news for us is that this is state-of-the-art equipment, and it has the best detection that exists today with this technology. If we go back 3 years, that equipment has gotten more tired since then. So we're very excited to show you that this will be an ongoing expense for the city, and the city has said yes to that, but we're bringing in the very best equipment that we can. That's the study that we all looked at. It clearly indicated that there is room for improvement on all those signalized intersections. It does this great grading process. It looks at the length of time that the green is showing. This update would also give us our left turn yellow arrows, and we would have some of the best equipment that exists. The challenge and the reason for the funding is that the equipment would go in at $175,000 partner, being the state of Idaho. The cost to build the infrastructure or the conduit and the fiber comes from the 911 call center up on Julia. So on this slide, it's the yellow portion. We have no connectivity to it right now. The additional good news is this potentially sets us up with those signals working together to extend fiber and conduit down to La Crosse, as that one potentially comes on in the future. Then these signals are talking to each other. The reason I bring this before you is it's been a council priority, but we also have manpower. We're forecasting about 1,700 hours of our people doing this. And I would suggest to you that at $40 an hour, that's over $68,000. That doesn't include the ongoing maintenance. But it appears that the timing is right. It appears that ITD has finally said yes, and we've been asking for more than 3 years, combined with the fact that we have the right personnel. In fact, in this financial plan, we have approved a new electrician. So the person we have on staff is phenomenal, and without that person, we probably could not absorb all the technical requests to put in this equipment and make sure it works correctly. So I'm attempting to give you some more background information on why I believe this could happen. As we are seeking money to bring this all together, our goal would be to have this operational Memorial Day 2020. So we have been working with contractors to help us with this. We have mobilized our information technology staff to look at this. We are pretty good at fiber, but we need a partner. In so doing, this would improve everything that we've looked at from that traffic study. It takes care of all of that. One additional comment is the fact that our team has looked at the off-ramp from the freeway, that we would put detection further down that ramp so that this equipment could look and say, the ramp is full, we need to get people off of the ramp, turning the corner so that they're not backed up on the interstate. Huge safety issue. The state was very impressed with that. So we have $175,000 coming from Idaho Transportation Department. We estimate the cost for infrastructure, all of the additional work that needs to be done above and beyond the state's portion of it at $160,000. We anticipate the city will have 1,700 hours in it. And if we have a mild winter, it could maybe get done earlier, but we're using these people to plow snow, and so if I can keep snow away, this would be even better. We know that you have allocated dollars for your lacrosse park. We appreciate that. We believe that this is a higher priority than moving on that park. So my ask today would be for $100,000 from Ignite to assist the city to build this out as soon as we possibly can. The city would use funds from its capital or its impact fees to do the rest of it, and then we would work on our wages and benefits to carry that. So I would stand for any questions that you might have.
How soon will you start this project?
Based on council's enthusiasm, we are ready to bring on a contractor as soon as we have all the dollars allocated this fall.
And the only dollars that are remaining are from Ignite?
We have been asked to talk to the county, and the county has been a very good partner as we look at other conduit that's across the city. We partner on that. They have about 80% of the conduit. We only have 20%. So that would be a potential, I'm not feeling really good about having the county participate, but it does get another loop for the fiber optics that we want to have looped throughout the city. So that would be.
Would that be a smaller ask from Ignite then, if the county was involved?
Could it be a smaller ask? I'm not optimistic with the county.
Okay.
I'm not optimistic there. We believe that we can add some value in their situation so that we can continue that great relationship about being in their conduit with the fiber. This would get them closer to the transit center. And we would like to get out that way as well for the Atlas Waterfront Park so we can have that connectivity. And then, as I mentioned, the La Crosse Avenue opportunity.
Tony?
Troy, can you throw up that slide again, the aerial graphic showing the yellow line? Just so the board knows take control here for a second. The Lake District ends right there. So this area would be out of our Lake District boundary. So I've been talking to Troy to see, how much of the funding could be spent within the existing district, the request. And I believe you think most of it, if not all of it, can be?
That was our analysis, because we know that you have district limits.
Mm-hmm.
So we would use city dollars on the first portion of that build so that we're not spending any dollars outside of your district. County's been cooperative because we're, plowing conduit down that property line out there, and we're sneaking right along the state pit where the sidewalk is out there, and right now is a good time to be in the field doing that work with directional boring. So we actually have our quotes for bidding this project because we're so enthusiastic.
Well, I would just, it's as we all know, kind of a hot topic for the public, and it is a direct, kind of line of sight consequence from the traffic study, and that's one of the things that got identified. So, I think that's a pretty high priority.
I also see it as a high priority. Just curious if there's any ramifications from pulling the money from the La Crosse Park project.
Well, as you can appreciate, anytime you reallocate dollars, I think it does come back to priorities. We've gotten some pretty good energy, as you understand, for lacrosse. That's coming together. That's been a number of years in process. Right now, we're probably limited a little bit at the city level to maintain any more parks. And so that's why you're focused on Atlas and doing a great job. You're going to see a presentation that has some pretty solid numbers in it, which is really exciting. We will be asking for more of these lacrosse dollars very shortly, just to give you the follow-up as administration from the city of Coeur d'Alene to help with a contingency to set it up. However, as we think about putting a park with a number of potential homes out on Celtice, this has really helped to solve that, what are you going to do about traffic? And so I'm thrilled to be in front of the Atlas Waterfront Park, have partners, and have an agreement that we are inking with Idaho Transportation Department. So that's the timing. Would we have to be giving up a park? I would say no. It just wouldn't get developed now, being a lacrosse area. So I totally respect the budget that you have, but we haven't had this opportunity in many, many years, and we don't get it very often. We have a new person that we've been working with that's helped get this to fruition. So the 175 has been a real challenge to get from ITD. And I need to compliment our streets director and our engineer for working very hard to validate that's 175. There's some technical advantages because there's software that says that you can have up to 35 signals on this software. We're not going to have 35, so we can build on the software that the Idaho Transportation Department is helping us acquire.
One more question. So Troy, based on if this project goes forward, is there a study that shows how much more traffic can be moved? How many more cars per day can be moved along that corridor versus what there is today?
I think what we could do is look at how the signals are functioning and how it feels. That's, moving traffic is partly what you sense when you're at an intersection. So how much more is a great question. The study clearly indicated that this would improve the efficiency of those areas. I don't know if it if we had a grade for the signals, we probably could add some more cars to it, so I'm sure we could engineer that to figure out more capacity.
Wasn't there an A, B, C grading system? Okay.
There was, yeah. And we haven't recognized a letter grade. I would say C is pretty good from Troy's traffic. That's not a very good person to reference, but A is, according to our engineer, that would be the fact that nobody was at this corner and you just pulled through. So C is a pretty good grade in traffic. These were Ds, and we hope to move them all to D, which doesn't sound great in the letter grades from school.
I see it as a high priority.
Well, and if the health district moves along, that's an important corridor on that western boundary, so kind of all ties together.
That's the vision that you have, so thanks for that, yes.
Okay,
And financially, we do have the funds in other budgets we can transfer over, so that's positive.
I'll make a motion then to divert funds from the lacrosse park to the ITD project on Northwest Boulevard.
not to exceed 100.
Not to exceed 100,000 and to remain in the district.
And I would highly recommend that you allocate exactly those funds in the Lake District so that we can work with Tony to get that resolved.
Absolutely.
Got that motion there, Tony? Looking for a second.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion or questions? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thanks a million.
Don't say that, and you'll ask for more.
Yeah. He's got 900,000.
Next item, Mr. Chairman, is to welcome Phil Boyd and Bill Greenwood to chat about the Atlas Waterfront Project construction contract and additional funding request.
That's why Troy wanted to go first.
Good afternoon. So I'm here to share with you what transpired last night at City Council, and Phil's going to follow up with a bit of an update. And so, what? The wrong one, sorry. Is it that one, Phil? That one. So, on the 1st of October, council rejected bids. They came in too high and gave us authorization to go negotiate with firms to try and come and budget. And this is a timeline of what happened. After council rejected the bids, Cameron Riley contacted me and said they were really interested in working out a negotiation and finding a way to come in on a budget. As we began those conversations, Cameron Riley decided that they did not want to participate any longer, so he let us know they weren't interested. We then went to T. Rivera, and he was interested, and we entered into a negotiation with him. And last night, council accepted that negotiation, and so we put that together. These are some things that we changed in the alternates. We ultimately we negotiated with Tommy a little bit, and this was his original number, and then this was his revised number. So he actually came down a bit after we began to negotiate with him. And then we pulled out some alternates that I felt and Phil felt that weren't really critical to the overall open space for the public. The first item was an irrigation pump station. I told council last night, here at McEwen, when we installed we were pumping water out of the lake to irrigate the park. There was no backup system installed here. So when the pumps failed, which they did that first year and a half, nobody knew about it, but we had to run in and tap the domestic water supply line so that we could keep the park green. So in this park, we thought ahead, and I had them have that in the base bid. So the pumping system for $150,000 is the infrastructure and the piping to draw that water out of the river is there, but not the pumping station itself. So we set that aside so that we can do it at a later time and or within this project if the money is still available. The next item is an overlook. So the overlook is when you come out of the area where Riverstone Park is along the trail, there's a bypass that brings you into this new park. There's an ADA access from this overlook, and there's a bike trail that comes down and connects into the trail. The architects felt like it needed to be a little bit larger, and so I don't know if that's really critical. It's still an opportunity for the public to stand there and get an overview of the open space. To expand it for $40,000, I didn't feel was that critical, so we set that one aside. And then the two other items are two log booms that are here and here. The pumping station that I just talked about is here, and the overlook is here. All the other 10 alternates that you saw listed are still in the base bid for that number. So before I go to the next slide, is there any question about this layout here? This is just an illustration. We'd heard that everybody seemed to like the idea of something that was more reminiscent of the mills, so they wanted something more timber-like. This is what we found for the playground. We're going to purchase this, the city will, and give that to the contractor for the installation. We're saving them a little bit on doing it that way without the markup by the contractor.
Looks nice.
And we've got some good feedback on the way this looks. So here is the whole layout or breakdown of what we're doing here and how. There's that playground that's Tommy's base bid with the 10 alternates. And these are the 4 adults that I just talked about. It does not give us much contingency. So I'm here this afternoon to ask you for $280,000 additionally, which you've already provided to us for this project. So we have a little bit of cushion to get the project done. There are a few items within the project that I think there's some savings that can be found. I've we've talked with Tommy about this before. One item that came out really big was the landscape architect spec'd out some really expensive soils that come out of Spokane. We believe we can save anywhere from $75,000 to $100,000 by using some special dirt that Mr. Anderson produces for us at the compost facility. So as long as we get this soil amended correctly, not just a top dressing, but a deep tilling, tining into this, we'll have some good soil. We can grow about anything with Mike's good brown dirt. So, and then there's some modifications we might find in the maintenance building. We may be able to find some savings there. So I'm hopeful that with your assistance again on this 280 and what we might be able to find within the project, we can get all these things done.
Bill, can I just point out a few things?
Yes, please.
Just for the board's edification, so I'm just going to steal your slide up here. So you can see up here on the top here, the Ignite construction funding is $6,075,150. And then if you bring in the 280, we're going to get down to, for construction, $6,355,150 for the construction project, if it includes the 280. So I just want to kind of give you that summation. So that, if you're interested in doing that, that would be the number you're looking at for the construction project. And the $200,000 is that Bill alluded to for the playground equipment. It's a direct city from the purchase, but the agency is paying for it. So that's in the mix there.
Steve?
So, Bill, so we come down there, everything is on budget, right?
Correct.
And the contingency isn't used. Then your plan would be to take the contingency dollars, then to go down and look at the four
Correct.
ad alternates.
That's absolutely correct.
So I guess, Tony, what I'm wondering is, does the board have a preference of what alternates are done? Is that 345 is the total on those four ad alternates?
Correct.
So if everything comes right on budget, you'll have $280,000. If Ignite grants that as a contingency, that will still be left over.
Correct.
Then, I guess today, the board would either say the 280 as a contingency, or if you get down there, the 280 can be used towards any of those ad alternates.
Those other four
Is that the
alternates.
decision that we're going
Yes.
to make then, Tony? Okay.
So
Yes.
it'd be the discretion of whoever to decide which ones to use.
Right.
Well, I can tell you right now, personally, the three that I would say were most critical is the pumping station for 150 and the log booms. I don't really see a need. If we have the funds, we can do it. But the expansion of the overlook, I don't think is as critical as those other three items. It's probably the lowest on my radar.
Okay.
So I guess, Mr. Chairman, just to add is, again, I would encourage, as you said, Bill, you're working with the contractor to see what potential savings there
Correct.
would be. It would be nice if the added Ignite funding, if the board so chooses to vote for that, those are the last dollars spent. And that if it comes down to that you have enough savings in the whole entire project, that there could possibly be some of that returned.
Correct.
That you wouldn't use the whole 280.
Right.
Would be a hope.
I would make a motion that, kind of following on Steve's idea there, that we allocate the 280,000 towards the project and then monitor how it's being used as the project winds to the
And
completion.
I'll be glad to be here anytime you like to give you updates on how the whole process is going. Phil and I will be here, at a moment's notice.
I'll second that motion.
Moved and seconded. Further discussion? Does Phil want to add anything before he gets,
Well, he comes up next.
or he gets committed? So is that motion crafted then?
I guess I would like to clarify what you mean by monitor. Does that mean you want to bring it back for approval?
No, I think
Or
we
do you
should
just want to
approve it
hear
now,
a
but I mean,
report?
Based upon, I kind of agree with Steve in the fact that if in fact they find enough other sources of revenue that they don't need the 280,000, maybe that it stays in our budget instead of being allocated to the project. But we'll allocate it at this point in time.
So do you want them to come back first sign off if it's not going to be used for the base bid plus the 6 ad alternates that are in before they use it on additional ad alternates that are not included, or?
Danielle, I guess in my opinion is if they don't have enough savings elsewhere, they wouldn't need the 280,000. It would never be allocated to it.
So I think, Vic, if I understand correctly, you're saying that if there is enough money in the entire savings of the project, that you can come back down and pay for that 345, that the either the entire 280 or a portion of the 280 would be returned or
That's
not
correct.
used from Ignite. So that they're allocating out the base bid, all of the ad alternates. But those 4 bottom ad alternates would only be done if the contingency isn't used.
Correct.
A little.
Well, and again, we may have other partners out there that might help with some of these other ad alts if in fact we run out of capital.
I'm sure it's gonna be fluid, so I mean, I guess at this point in time, I'd like to allocate the funds, but just with the idea that we stay involved.
If we have the savings, it reverts back to this commission, yeah.
I mean, these things never go straight line.
Thanks, Bill.
Thank you.
Danielle,
Do you have
Tony?
questions?
I guess I'm still a little bit, Tony, I don't know if you have drafted something. Maybe we can let Tony read the motion back.
Any other comments, or?
Bill's
Mr.
got one.
Boyd?
So before you vote on the motion, sorry, Phil, to stop you. So what I captured is a motion by Commissioner Arman, second by Commissioner Chapkus, agreeing to the negotiated construction contract with T-La Riviere as proposed, also agreeing to the city's additional funding request of $280,000 that will be used for construction project contingency issues, as well as potential funding of the 4 excluded project ad alternates, asking the city to use these additional funds as a last resort, with the city looking for savings in the project along the way, with a total Ignite CDA construction project funding commitment amount not to exceed $6,355,150.
Exactly.
Perfect.
Well done.
Before we vote, Phil, do you want to add some to that, or?
I was just going to add the note, Chairman Hoskins, for Commissioner Arman's comment. If there were a change, whether we have an ad alternate, that would be through a change order. The change order has 4 signatories to it. The contractor proposes it, we review it, and send it to the owners, which include both Ignite and the city. And so Tony looks at it, typically would bring it to the board and say, here, we're thinking about putting this ad alternate, and here's all the history behind it and why we need to use the 280,000. So the commissioners will get a look at each change order, which would just be included in an ad alternate. We just won't go at it without your.
So Phil, each of the 4 ad alts will be change orders?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep, and so you guys will get to view them. And as Bill mentioned, we anticipate right out of the chute here, one of the first things we're going to do is sit down and start working on this topsoil idea and figure out what savings are going to happen there. And I'll be here each month giving the board just a general update. And then if there was an actual addition or deletion to the contract, including the ad alternates, I would be advancing a change order for your consideration.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Any further questions or discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thanks, Bill. Thanks, Phil.
Yep. So I'm going to jump into the next item that's on your agenda. The amendment for the construction phase services is the title of it, but it also includes some other things in it. I've listed up here on the screen that I'll go through each one of them. The first one is the FEMA, it's called a letter of map revision. I'll explain that in a second. The bidding process that we've been through, construction phase services, construction staking with machine grading, which sounds kind of cool, and it is, and I'll explain it. Record drawings, and then post-construction phase services. You guys, I think, have the agreement in their packet. Yeah, and so the first one I'll talk about is the FEMA, we call them LOMERS for the acronym. This little section of the world that's shown in this blue square here is actually in the floodplain. And so the reason it's in the floodplain is historically that's where the log chain was. And I think in the past I've shown the commissioners pictures of the old log chain where the logs were floated down the river, channeled to this point, and then they were hauled out of this area. And so at some point in FEMA's history, we call it being mapped wet. They mapped it wet. It's not physically possible for it to flood now because what used to be the rail corridor, right where that red line is, and there was a little bridge there, and the water could flow underneath it, is now filled in. And then in addition to that, we have filled that in with the I-90 fill project. So that's not a wet area anymore. In order to be able to build buildings there and have the city plat that, allow you to plat it, it can't be in the floodplain. So the FEMA LOMR process removes that from the floodplain. So that's one of the elements in that proposed agreement number 7 that is in your packet. So I just wanted to explain that. It's a little unique, but not completely uncommon. The biggest part of the agreement that's in front of you is the bidding, the construction phase services, and the staking. I think the commission knows the services that are rendered during the construction phase, but I broke them out into the 3 broad categories: construction admin, observation, and staking. The admin is just what you think it sounds like. We're administering the contract, routing things through you in the city, negotiating change orders, putting up the pre-cons, reviewing submittals, doing all the things associated with administering the construction contract, construction meetings, all those different elements of it. There's the construction observation component, which is really where the rubber meets the road, because it achieves 2 things. One is ensuring that the project is being constructed in accordance with the plans and specification, cracking the whip on the contractor if necessary. And then the other part of it is tracking quantities and anticipating issues. Because sometimes, the contractor gets their head down, and we're there to kind of tilt their head up a little bit and say, you guys are planning for this, right? You see what's happening here. Because obviously when you get delays or things like that, that translates into money. Tracking the quantities is a huge element because this is a unit price contract for most of the project. So if they move a cubic yard of material, they get paid $5 because that's what they bid. That doesn't sound like a lot, but if you're moving 70,000 yards of material, which is what our current estimate is, or you're moving 100,000 yards of material, those are big numbers, and so you have to stay right on top of that. So that's another component of the construction observation. The other unique element to Ignite is your districts. Normally we have one place where you're keeping track of the accounting. In this situation, we have 2 places. So if 1 cubic yard of material gets moved in the Lake District, it goes into the Lake District column. If it gets moved in the River District, it goes in the River District column. So that has to be done in the field, and then it has to be translated into the office. And so Tony has a basis for making sure all of us, have properly allocated the funding to each district. And then there's the construction staking component of it. In this case, LaRiviere has the ability to do machine grading, which is essentially they upload what are called surfaces that we've created in the computer. So it minimizes how much staking we have to do, so the wood you see in the ground out there. We still have to set up a lot of control, and we have to check stake because machine grading can quickly go south because an operator is sitting there driving and the machine is doing the adjustment, and you can burn through massive quantities of earth very quickly if you're not paying attention. And so there's a check shots that we do as part of that. It still results in a cost savings by having a contractor that machine grades. Our staking fee in this, when Tony and I and Troy were negotiating and working through things, is about $30,000 lower, just for the fact that they're using machine grading. So it's a pretty good savings. So that's just a little snapshot about that phase of the work. A couple other phases, record drawings are just what they sound like. These are important for the city and Bill to have stuff. We also put it into GIS and take pictures of it. And at the end of the project, the city gets a project book, which has all the things in it. Bill mentioned the pumps. If the pump blows up, you don't want to have to crawl into the hole and find out what the pump was. You want to open up your project book and look in it, open to the tab to pumps and say, oh, it was this pump, and they can just order it. So that's one of the other things that comes out of record drawings. And then post-construction phase is just what it sounds like. Operational assistance, warranty monitoring. Bill calls up and says, hey, this thing isn't working. He doesn't have to chase the contractor. He calls us, and we chase the contractor and get him to do what he's supposed to do in that warranty period, including just before the end of it, we just did this on Memorial, we do a one-year walkthrough and go look at the site and look if there's warranty issues, talk to Bill and his staff, and then we wrangle the contractor, because they don't always like to come back at the one-year period. So that's a little snapshot of the services here. You can see, I took the spreadsheet that Bill had up there and exploded the engineering services, so you can see the fees associated with each one of those elements of the project, the total, and then it just lines up with the rest of it that Bill had presented earlier. So that is the presentation on the proposed contract amendment number 7.
Questions? Mr. Mayor.
So Phil, do you have in your staff signed someone out that's going to be the manager from your end? Because Matt Gillis did Celtice, and Matt was great, right? Did a super job.
Yep.
So do you have a member of your staff that you've assigned out specifically?
You're looking at him.
Okay.
Yeah. And part of it, you know, and it's a little bit unusual maybe for me to be the project manager, but there's two parts of it. One, I'm involved in other parts of the project that I'm talking about here now. I have all the institutional memory, and I actually have we did a little bit differently here. I have a project engineer that will actually, I mean, honestly, he'll do a lot of the day-to-day work with my supervision, but I'll be at all the construction meetings, come to all of these, review all the pay requests, and do all the critical work, wrangle the contractor, all those important things. But there's a ton of work behind that we have. We'll probably actually have 6 staff working on this project, because it's a massive project. The other thing that's a little bit of a challenge with this one is, not a challenge, it's probably a blessing, but it's a challenge for us. La Riviere self-performs virtually all of their work. So looking at their schedule, they intend to simultaneously work on the buildings, the shoreline stabilization, and the earthwork. And so you guys have been out to the site and how big it is, and it's not like I can have an inspector watching the shoreline stabilization and monitoring the building at the same time. And so at times, we'll have 2 or 3 inspectors on the job just to continue to monitor the work and ensure compliance with the specifications. And that's a tough thing to manage because my staff is growing and shrinking, but that's just kind of the nature of this project. And it's a positive thing because La Riviere has compressed the schedule, which was part of the negotiations that Bill mentioned earlier. That compression of schedule and negotiations that I had with Troy and Tony, which were very thorough, and they did a delightful job of digging through everything, and we went through kind of line by line in our scope of work. We reduced our fee because La Riviere shortened their schedule by a month. Our fee came down about $25,000 because we just don't have to have people on the job. So that was a significant other part of the savings, Mayor, that we didn't mention earlier last night.
Further comments?
I was just going to add that as part of Phil's savings, which he talked about, the city has taken on some of the jobs, and we have ensured that we want to make sure that the city is going to perform their part of the contract. So some of the savings from Phil's contract is the city doing some review. Do you want to talk about that for a second?
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I had forgot to mention that. When Troy and Tony and I were negotiating through our scopes of services, and there's a lot more detail behind what you see here. And as we were going through each of those things, Troy was asking, well, are there things that the city staff can do? And one of them is the irrigation system and the plantings inspections. And so Jeff Erickson, who works for Bill, is very irrigation oriented, and he's involved with a lot of our projects anyway. And so as we talked that through, that seemed like a good place. So the Troy, I hope he's told Bill, has committed Jeff to provide that construction observation part of it. So we pulled that out of our contract, and we'll just have Jeff as part of our team. And, you know, as we need him, we'll call him and say, hey, Jeff, it's time for inspections and plantings and whatnot. It'll work out well because Jeff he's worked with us on a lot of other projects, and he's very knowledgeable and prompt and good to work with.
Good. So what is the exact motion you're wanting?
So we need a motion to approve the Welch-Gomer Amendment Number 7 to the consultant agreement in the amount of $536,800 for professional construction management services as proposed for the Atlas Waterfront project.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded. Further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Okay.
Phil, thanks a million.
Thank you. I'll close this and then I'll be back up after Troy.
So the next item, Mr. Chairman, is the Atlas Waterfront Project Finance Agreement with the City of Coeur d'Alene. This is a document that Danielle and her team has crafted that is similar to other agreements we've had with the city for like with Celtice Way, where we agree to fund a certain amount of money for the project, and we are involved in the review of the process and the change orders and signing the documents and the whole process. But the main thing is that this agreement will be for a total of $6,355,150 for the construction part of the project.
Tony, just one point of clarification. I know last night at City Council, there was some concern about the way the bid process went down and how rejected bid and the negotiation. Are we comfortable, Danielle? Are we comfortable with the way the city's negotiated this? There's no fallback to Ignite if something should come back as far as, concern about how the bid process went through?
So the process the city used is outlined pretty clearly in the statute that you can, after you have a failed bid process, you can go back and negotiate with other contractors. If there were to be some sort of a challenge, which, I mean, you can't foreclose that possibility, it's a city contract, it's not an Ignite contract, so that would fall on the city.
Okay, that's what I was just
And it
checking.
would probably happen before construction began, so I don't think that there'd be any risk to Ignite funds.
Thank you.
So we'd be looking for a motion to that effect for the agreement.
And I was just going to add, in light of what I was alluding to, is that we did add to this funding agreement that the city performed its obligations that are as outlined in the contract with Phil. So those, inspection review obligations that the city agreed to take on to reduce Phil's cost, we made sure in this Atlas funding agreement that they said, yes, we'll do those, since we're not going to send Tony out to inspect the irrigation systems.
I make a motion that we accept the agreement for financing of improvements of the Atlas Waterfront Project with the Coeur d'Alene, or City of Coeur d'Alene.
Second?
Moved and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, before we go on to the next step, maybe just to ask Phil how long his presentation is, because I know that Commissioner English has a commitment at 5:30, and we have one more voting item. Approximately how long do you think this portion will take, Phil?
I can get it done in less than let's say 5 minutes.
Okay, we're in good shape.
Now I'm on the clock, so, and I know Jeff.
We started the clock.
Timing me up back there.
Could be a good thing.
I'm not sure we want you on the clock yet, though.
So I'm going to quickly move through the master plat, give you an update on the master plat and the PUD and the request for proposals for land disposition. The plat, this is, I'm not going to get into the details about this, but this shows the density of the plat. The reason it shows such a high density is when you master plat, you want to go in with your highest potential lot density because you can always go down, but you can't go up. So this just demonstrates some of the density of the lots. This is a table that demonstrates the PUD, requested PUD deviations, and they're associated with height, just a little bit of a height adjustment, some adjustment on parking, but only associated with restaurant. We heard loud and clear from both the Planning Commission and the City Council that they did not want to reduce the required parking as we had originally proposed. And so that's that's kind of the summary of the deviations that we'll be requesting for the PUD. This is a density map that demonstrates the maximum residential dwelling unit density. And this is a part of our submittal. And again, the idea is to show the Planning Commission how much density, the maximum amount of density that would be there. It's likely that it won't be this high, but we used the development standards, which you guys have seen, the drafts of the development standards, to guide the density that you see here. This is just an open space map and a phasing. These are some elements that we have to put into the PUD. We're gonna do some additional rework on the open space, like this, there's a little funny lot layout here, was just a byproduct of maximizing lot density, so we'll make some improvements to this. So, moving quickly, though, that was just the master plat and the PUD. I'll show you the schedule here in a minute of how that's gonna progress through the city's process. That master plat and PUD is necessary to be approved before we move to the RFP process to dispose of the property. The development standards have been updated because they're a key part of our PUD submittal. And remember, the objective of the development standards is for the Planning Commission to look at them, feel comfortable that this is an appropriate design and style for the neighborhood. And once approved, now Ignite has a guiding document to evaluate proposals against. We also have a document to give the developers to say, here's what you're allowed to do. And you guys have seen a lot of this before, but it gives overall development concepts, the types of frontage that is allowed. Can you have a driveway? Can you not have a driveway? Where are the homes set back? How close can they be? There's a little bit of a character, so it describes the type of development we're looking for. The areas are broken out, as you see here, and I picked Area 9 here. And if you were to go look at Area 9, there's different development types that a potential buyer can consider. In this particular area, there's not a mixed-use component, and we think that's important there, and so we're kind of working back through that to add a mixed-use component in here. But you can see it could be residential, it could be office, it could be retail. And that's a parcel up here that has a lot of different potentials to it. So the milestone dates that we're looking, moving forward, these are pretty set in stone. We're going to go to the Planning Commission in a workshop format one more time to talk about standards, parking, and the PUD deviations. Because this is such a community-driven project, and we've been working with the Planning Commission and Hillary and her staff pretty closely, we wanted to go one more time and say, did we get it right? Are you guys comfortable with it? And have them have the opportunity to say, gee, can we change this? That'll happen on the 6th. The 12th, we'll actually go to the formal process. And if, assuming that we're approved there, Tony's proposing a special call meeting to cut loose the RFP, because you guys will want to vote on that. We'll issue the RFP on the 15th and get back responses on the 20th and bring back a recommendation to you on the 30th of January in 2020. So moving pretty quickly now. It's all been kind of leading up to this, and obviously getting the waterfront park construction contract approved and getting through the rest of this process is key to that RFP, because developers are going to want to know this is real and the city really intends to go build the park and do things. How's that? Did I
Pretty good.
talk fast enough?
Very good.
Looks good, too.
Thank you. Any questions?
Mr. Chairman, just going back to the park construction, maybe just, I'm trying to think of building through the winter, right? And the plan, I guess, is to, right now, they look at what a typical winter is, and they're planning on just moving right through, right? There could be some weather delays, but have they factored some of that in?
So the way that they built their original schedule was with a kind of a, we'll call it a mild winter. And their schedule that they preliminarily submitted to us shows a completion date of May 15th. And so anticipating you're not going to have probably ideal weather, it's probably going to go beyond May 15th. Their contract will be written for a construction completion, substantial completion on June 30th. So that's the timeframe. And so they intend to hit it hard. For whatever reason, in the negotiations with Le Riviere, they have a lot of jobs that are finishing up. And so they plan to put a pretty significant amount of people on this project working in kind of 4 different areas: the shoreline stabilization, the earthwork, the utilities, and the buildings. So there'll be a lot of simultaneous construction that's occurring out there. And so we'll see how the shoreline stabilization can occur, obviously, during inclement weather, as long as you keep the ground unfrozen. Same with the earthwork. The building and the utilities get a little more challenging.
Okay.
When do they anticipate starting?
November 1. Yeah.
Plan coming together.
Yeah,
It is.
Nice.
okay,
Thanks, Phil.
thank you.
Final item, Mr. Chairman, or second to last item on my report is we've been presented with a real estate purchase offer for our Lot 1 on North Park Drive. I've shared this with you. Just a couple comments on some of the parameters. As you recall, the Lot 1 is listed for $234,000. It appraised for $209,000, and the current offer we have now is for $201,000. Just a couple items in their offer, a couple of their conditions. One of their conditions is that subject to buyer satisfaction of their ability to build their home, design on the property, and ability to obtain necessary permits and variances to construct their building design on the combined acreage. We're not sure what they are talking about zoning variances. I chatted a little bit with Hillary about that. She has not been approached by these potential buyers on what they're thinking, so we're not sure what that means. Another condition is that the seller, which would be Ignite, provide legal description, which includes a combined Tract A and Lot 1 exhibit, and a survey. And I've chatted with Welch Gomer, who did the subdivision layout, and we can do those fairly quickly. So no issues there, but the variance item has us a bit concerned. They want to close on December 13th, which is a ways out there, so obviously they want to make sure that they can build the type of home they want on that site, and are giving themselves a couple months to kind of figure that out before closing. So that's kind of an overview summary. There's still a few things that need to be tightened up in this offer per our Renee Sandler, our realtor that's working with us. And we have until October 18th to respond to this offer. So I'm not sure what the board wants to do on this. I'm a little concerned we probably have to push back. If you like the offer of $201,000, we can accept that and put conditions on counter, trying to understand what they mean by their variance. We're just not sure what that means and what that.
Kind of looks like an opt-out if they wanted to, pretty
Possibly.
broad opt-out.
Possibly. We just don't know what they're looking for on this front. So that would be something we need to clarify.
The way it's drafted right now, I think that they could theoretically back out at any time prior to closing. They're also giving themselves a 50-day due diligence window, which is significantly longer than you would typically see. So I'd be inclined to say if you get 50 days for due diligence, you don't get to opt out anytime up till closing.
So is that 50 days after the December closing?
No, they're giving themselves a 50-day due diligence window prior to closing, which would allow them to back out during that time if they determine first, an issue. But in addition to that, they have this just broad, open-ended, that they have to be satisfied that they can build their plan on that lot, which is, I think, where the zoning ordinance or zoning exception is possibly where they're looking for that, and that it's unending. It just says until closing.
Do they have any earnest money down?
$500.
That's minimal.
I wonder, could Hillary, excuse me, Mr. Chairman, Hillary, could you come up for a question real quick?
Thanks for staying.
Did you have a chance to review that condition with Tony, or is this the first you're
We
hearing it?
talked on the phone briefly this afternoon before this meeting. I hadn't had a chance to make sure that any of my staff members hadn't received a call, but I had not heard anything about it from my team members, nor had I received a call. And in talking to Danielle and Tony before the meeting too, the issue, if they're asking for a true variance from the zoning code, you need a physical hardship on your property. And because Ignite and the city worked on platting those lots, it's gonna be hard to say that that lot has some, it's like a rock outcropping or something that's gonna make it hard to build. It is an odd shape, yes, but it met all the square footage requirements and frontage requirements. And we had discussed before that it could be appropriate to allow a driveway access across that tract since they're being sold together. But if they're asking for a height or setback variance, it probably is gonna be challenging for the planning commission to grant that, given what we just talked about.
And knowing the timeline too, I doubt that they could accomplish that in 50 days.
Right, exactly. Yep, just the time frame of getting before the planning commission with the application and processing notification requirements.
Right, so I guess it's a matter of, on that variance request, do we shorten that time frame of what to clear those issues up? if those issues are something where they just need to come and visit with you and say, here is my building plan, does this building plan work? Your staff works through them, it could just be a few days. But if they are requiring to go through the whole planning commission, it could be 60, 90 days.
Right.
Further than that, and that's, Tony, I guess that's something we don't know right now, correct?
I mean, so the board could say in a counter that we would give you 20 days, 30 days to figure out this zoning issue with the city. Or, I mean, you have a wide open response. You can reject this offer, and we could chat with the buyers and have them, you know, kind of fine tune their offer and come back if they choose to, or you can accept it with some conditions.
My thinking is that I'm good with the price, but I do think that we need to shorten that timeframe on the variance, and that, I guess, I would move to accept the offer price of $201,000 with giving 30 days to clear up all of the issues. So 30 days to do due diligence, and then a close date of December 13th, so that I would put forward that motion.
I would second that.
Did that give you enough information, Tony?
I think so,
That's
just
a
not knowing
reasonable
what they're
counter.
thinking.
So we would counter to remove that condition that they can have a kind of an out anytime up till closing.
So they would need to remove the contingencies within 30 days, and we could keep the closing date of December 13th.
Okay.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Do you have that crafted?
I've captured it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Just a few final updates, Mr. Chairman. Midtown Ventures project, still working with the Midtown Ventures LLC team on the Capone issue. There's no resolution to that at this time. Efforts continue to resolve that parking easement issue. Memorial Grandstand renovation, work continues. The contractor, as we discussed, has found some unforeseen issues involving the building's original foundation footings or lack thereof, and they're looking to remedy that issue at this time. Project completion is still scheduled to be late spring 2020. And the Museum of North Idaho Young Avenue relocation effort, it's been shared with me that the Museum of North Idaho team is planning to move the White House to its new location on the morning of Saturday, November 16th. And there's efforts and team meetings to kind of get that all dialed in over these next few weeks. So, still go. That's all I have, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Now is the time for some board commissioner comments. Any board commissioner comments? Seeing none, any additional public comment? Any public comment? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned. Motion carries.
Perfect.
Thank you, everybody.